Picture this. You've just matched with someone who seems perfect, great conversation, shared interests, even a few laughs that feel genuinely easy. Then, out of nowhere, silence. The messages stop. Your last "Hey, how's your week going?" sits unread, and that tiny checkmark taunts you with its indifference. Or maybe it's the slow fade. The replies grow shorter, the enthusiasm evaporates, and suddenly you're left wondering what you did wrong. Sound familiar? Dating today can feel like navigating a minefield blindfolded, where rejection, overthinking, and uncertainty are the default settings. But what if there was a way to step onto that battlefield not just unscathed but stronger? That's where Stoicism comes in, an ancient philosophy that's shockingly relevant to the chaos of modern romance. Stoicism isn't about suppressing emotions or pretending you don't care. It's about training your mind to focus on what you can control, your actions, your reactions, your integrity, while letting go of what you can't. Imagine approaching dating not with desperation or fear, but with unshakable calm. No more dissecting texts for hidden meanings, no more spiraling after a rejection, no more giving strangers the power to define your self-worth. That's the power of Stoicism. It turns dating from a source of anxiety into an opportunity for growth. And today, we're diving deep into 25 ways to apply this timeless wisdom to your love life, like forging mental armor for the modern dating world. Think of these strategies as tools not to manipulate outcomes, but to protect your peace. Whether it's handling ghosting with grace, reframing rejection as redirection, or staying grounded when emotions run high, Stoicism offers a blueprint for resilience. This isn't about playing games or pretending to be someone you're not. It's about showing up as your best self, no matter how chaotic the dating pool gets. So if you're ready to transform frustration into clarity and uncertainty into confidence, let's begin. Because the most attractive thing you can bring to any relationship isn't perfection, it's perspective. And that's exactly what Stoicism delivers. The first and most foundational Stoic principle for modern dating is this: focus relentlessly on what you control and let go of what you don't. Think about it. When you send a message, you control how genuine, thoughtful, or playful it is. You decide whether to show up as your authentic self, but the moment you hit send, that's where your influence ends. Whether they reply, how quickly, or even if they unmatch, none of that belongs to you. This is the Stoic dichotomy of control, and it's the ultimate antidote to dating anxiety. Picture this scenario. You spend 20 minutes crafting the perfect opening message, something that references their profile, includes a light-hearted question, and feels uniquely you. The old version of you might obsessively check your phone, replay the wording in your head, or panic when an hour passes without a reply. But the Stoic approach flips the script. You acknowledge the truth, you did your part with integrity, and the rest is out of your hands. The peace comes from knowing you controlled what you could, your effort, your intention, without demanding a specific outcome. Here's where people get stuck. They tie their self-worth to external validation. No reply doesn't mean you failed. It just means the other person made a choice for reasons you'll never fully know. Maybe they're overwhelmed at work. Maybe they reconnected with an ex. Maybe they just weren't feeling it. The point is, their actions reflect their reality, not your value. Stoicism teaches us to separate those two things. This mindset isn't about detachment, it's about empowerment. When you stop measuring your worth by responses or matches, you free yourself to engage with dating as an experiment rather than a test. Send that message because it's fun to connect, not because you need the reply to feel okay. Go on that date because you're curious about the person, not because you're banking on a second one. The irony: this shift often makes you more attractive, not because you're playing it cool, but because you're genuinely at ease. So the next time you feel that familiar spiral starting, the overanalyzing, the self-doubt, ask yourself one question: did I do my part with honesty and kindness? If the answer is yes, your job is done. The rest isn't up to you, and that's not just okay, it's liberating, because when you anchor yourself in what you control, rejection loses its sting, and dating becomes less about winning approval and more about discovering what and who aligns with the life you're building. Here's a radical idea. What if instead of dreading rejection, you invited it in, not because you want it, but because you're ready for it? This is the Stoic practice of negative visualization, or premeditatio malorum, the deliberate act of imagining the worst-case scenario to strip it of its power. When applied to dating, it's like emotional inoculation. You don't just hope for the best, you prepare for the messy middle, so when it happens, you're not derailed. Take ghosting, for example. We've all been there. You send a follow-up text after a great date and suddenly, crickets. The old you might spiral into self-doubt. Was it something I said? Did they meet someone else? But the Stoic approach flips the script before you even hit send. You pause and ask, what if they never reply? You play it out in your mind, the silence, the initial sting, even the awkward moment when friends ask how the date went. And here's the magic. By visualizing it, you realize something profound. You're still breathing, the sun still rises, you're still you. This isn't pessimism, it's preparedness. Ancient Stoics like Seneca used this technique to face everything from exile to betrayal. For modern dating, it works the same way. Before a first date, instead of fixating on fantasies of instant chemistry, you imagine the other person being rude, bored, or distracted. You picture yourself staying calm, ending the night with dignity, and even laughing about it later. The goal isn't to manifest disaster, it's to recognize that even if it happens, you'll handle it. Negative visualization also exposes a hidden truth. Most dating fears are about the unknown, not the outcome itself. The anxiety of waiting for a reply is often worse than the silence. The dread of rejection hurts more than the actual no. By mentally rehearsing these scenarios, you shrink the gap between fear and reality. When the worst happens, it feels familiar, almost routine, because you've already lived through it in your mind. Try this exercise next time you're about to double text. Before typing, close your eyes and visualize sending it and hearing nothing back. Sit with that discomfort for 30 seconds. Notice how your pulse slows, how your shoulders relax when you accept it as a possibility. Now hit send. Whether they reply or not, you've already won, because you've proven to yourself that your peace doesn't depend on someone else's actions. That's the real power of negative visualization. It turns fear into freedom, and in the chaos of modern dating, that's a superpower worth having. Think of rejection as a stop sign on a road trip. It doesn't mean the journey is over, just that there's a better route ahead. This is Stoicism's secret weapon for modern dating, reframing rejection as redirection. Marcus Aurelius put it perfectly when he wrote, "The obstacle is the way." What if every no, every ghosting, every fizzled-out conversation wasn't a verdict on your worth, but a nudge toward something or someone more aligned with your path? Here's how this plays out in reality. You match with someone who checks all the boxes: same sense of humor, shared values, even that niche passion for 80s synth music. The first date goes well, but when you suggest a second, they vanish. The instinct is to internalize it. Was I not funny enough? Did I talk too much? But Stoicism challenges that narrative. Instead of asking, "Why did they reject me?" you ask, "What did this reveal?" Maybe it showed you're drawn to people who struggle with commitment. Maybe it highlighted your own tendency to overlook red flags when chemistry feels electric. Or maybe it was just randomness, two decent people who weren't quite right for each other. The key shift here is realizing rejection isn't about you, it's for you. Think of it like a dating algorithm refining its suggestions. Each no narrows the field, guiding you closer to what truly fits. Contrast this with the common overreaction to ghosting, obsessively rereading old texts, crafting elaborate theories, or worse, chasing closure from someone who's already shown they won't give it. The Stoic doesn't waste energy demanding explanations from others. They extract the lesson and move forward. This isn't just philosophical fluff. Neuroscience backs it up. When we attach meaning to hardship, our brains process it as growth rather than trauma. That's why two people can experience the same rejection. One walks away crushed, the other wiser. The difference, perspective. The Stoic chooses to see the mismatch as a gift, one less detour on the way to what's meant for them. So the next time you're left on read or passed over, try this exercise. Write down 3 ways this could benefit you. Maybe it freed up time for a hobby you'd neglected. Maybe it revealed a boundary you need to set. Or maybe it's simply practice for resilience, because every great love story requires a few wrong turns first. Rejection isn't the opposite of success, it's part of the curriculum. And as the Stoics knew, the best education isn't always comfortable, but it's always valuable. There's a subtle trap in modern dating, one that even the most self-aware among us fall into without realizing it. We become so fixated on the destination, a relationship validation, that elusive spark, that we forget the journey itself has value. Stoics call this amor fati, the love of fate. It's the art of embracing every step, not just the outcomes we fantasize about. Imagine approaching each date not as an audition for a role in your life, but as a chance to learn something new about yourself, about human connection, even about the world. Consider how differently you'd show up if you viewed dating as a series of conversations rather than a high-stakes interview. No more rehearsing answers in your head or scanning for signs of compatibility like a detective collecting evidence. Instead, you'd be fully present, curious about the person across from you, attentive to the way their eyes light up when they talk about their passion, or how they handle the awkward silence when the waiter takes too long. These moments aren't just stepping stones to a goal, they're tiny, fleeting gifts. Here's a practical way to cultivate this mindset. After every date, carve out 10 minutes to journal. But here's the twist: don't just document whether there was chemistry or if they texted back. Ask yourself deeper questions. What did I discover about my own boundaries today? Did I notice any patterns in how I react to certain personalities? What surprised me? This shifts the focus from external validation. Did they like me? To internal growth. What did this teach me? The magic of amor fati is that it transforms dating from a numbers game into a masterclass in self-awareness. That coffee date where the conversation fell flat. It wasn't a failure, it was a lesson in the kinds of energy that drain you. The person who talked incessantly about their ex, a reminder of what emotional availability looks like or doesn't. Even the matches that go nowhere serve a purpose. They're rehearsals for authenticity, practice in staying grounded when the stakes feel high. This isn't about pretending every interaction is profound. Some dates will be forgettable, some matches uninspiring. But when you stop treating them as means to an end, you start noticing the hidden curriculum. The way your patience expands when someone arrives late, the way your intuition sharpens when charm feels performative. These are the real wins, the quiet, cumulative lessons that prepare you for the connection that does matter. So the next time you swipe or say yes to a drink invitation, pause for a second. Remind yourself, you're not just hunting for a partner. You're collecting experiences, refining your discernment, and most importantly, falling in love with the process of becoming the person who's ready for what you truly desire. And that's something no ghosting or bad date can ever take from you. Every bad date holds a hidden curriculum if you're willing to enroll. This is the heart of Epictetus' famous mantra, "The obstacle is the way." In dating, the missteps and cringe-worthy moments aren't just awkward stories for your group chat. They're resistance training for emotional resilience. Think of it like this: you wouldn't expect to master the piano without hitting wrong notes, yet we often expect love to unfold without a single off-key moment. Take the story of James, a modern Stoic who turned a dating disaster into a masterclass in detachment. He arrived at a coffee shop to find his date already seated wearing noise-canceling headphones. Not just discreet earbuds, but full-sized, over-ear headphones. Instead of spiraling into self-doubt or frustration, James made a split-second Stoic pivot. This isn't a rejection, it's a stress test for my sense of humor. He sat down, gestured to his own ears, and mouthed exaggeratedly, "Can you hear me now?" When she finally removed them, he discovered she'd been troubleshooting a work crisis, but by then, he'd already reframed the entire interaction as a game. Here's why this mindset shift matters. Every dating obstacle, ghosting, flakiness, mismatched energy isn't just something to endure, it's raw material for growth. That date who monopolized the conversation, practice in setting boundaries. The one who showed up 20 minutes late, a lesson in patience and knowing when to leave. Even the matches that fizzle before meeting teach you to invest emotion proportionally, a skill that pays dividends in all relationships. The Stoics trained for adversity like athletes train for competition. Seneca would practice poverty, deliberately wearing threadbare clothes to remember comfort wasn't guaranteed. In dating, the equivalent is leaning into discomfort instead of avoiding it. Try this after your next awkward interaction. Write down 3 skills it sharpened. Did you practice grace under pressure? Did you notice a red flag faster than last time? That's progress no algorithm can quantify. What makes this approach transformative is its neutrality. The Stoic doesn't label experiences as good or bad. They ask, what does this make possible? A cancelled date becomes reclaimed time. A mismatched connection reveals a preference you hadn't articulated. Even heartbreak, that universal dating obstacle, becomes the whetstone that hones your capacity for joy. So the next time you're mid-cringe on a date that's clearly derailing, pause. Channel your inner Epictetus. This isn't going wrong, it's going differently than expected. Maybe you're collecting material for a future stand-up routine. Maybe you're discovering a deal breaker you'd never considered. Either way, you're not just sitting across from a stranger, you're in the gym building emotional muscle. And just like physical training, the burn means it's working. Here's the paradox of modern dating. We scroll through endless profiles looking for someone who sees us, yet we often measure our own worth by how many strangers swipe right. Stoicism flips this script with a radical idea. Your value isn't something others assign. It's something you carry within. This isn't about arrogance or pretending rejection doesn't sting. It's about building an unshakable foundation where external validation becomes optional, not oxygen. Imagine 2 versions of yourself. Version 1 wakes up, checks their dating apps, and feels a rush of dopamine from 3 new matches until lunchtime when the conversations stall. Their mood plummets. They tweak their profile bio, questioning whether they're funny enough or attractive enough. Version 2 opens the same apps, enjoys the matches, but when the silence comes, it doesn't shake them. Why? Because their self-worth isn't hanging in the balance of a notification. They already know their value isn't determined by algorithms or fleeting attention. This is the heart of Stoic self-validation. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "You don't have to turn this into something. It doesn't have to upset you." He might as well have been talking about modern dating. The practice isn't about ignoring the natural desire for connection. It's about disentangling that desire from your sense of worth. Think of it like a tree with deep roots. The wind, or in this case, dating app whims, can sway the branches, but the core remains steady. Now, here's the challenge that makes this tangible. Delete your dating apps for a week. Not as a punishment, but as an experiment in reclaiming your narrative. Notice what happens when you're not subconsciously waiting for that match to prove you're desirable. At first, it might feel unsettling, like withdrawal from a drug you didn't realize you were taking. But soon, something shifts. You start filling that mental space with activities that reinforce your intrinsic worth. Cooking a meal just because it delights you, diving into a project that challenges you, or simply enjoying your own company without documenting it for an audience. This isn't about swearing off dating apps forever. It's about breaking the dependency. When you return to them, you'll bring a new mindset, one where likes and matches are sprinkles on the sundae, not the sundae itself. You'll catch yourself thinking, this person's interest or lack of it doesn't define me, and for the first time you'll truly believe it. The irony, this internal stability becomes magnetic. When you're not frantically seeking validation, you show up more authentically. Conversations flow easier because you're not performing. Rejection stings less because it doesn't tap into a void. And when you do connect with someone, it's not because you needed them to fill a hole, it's because you chose them from a place of wholeness. That's the real power of Stoic self-worth. It turns dating from a hunger into a gift. That flash of heat when you see their name pop up after days of silence, a casual, "Hey stranger," like nothing happened, is the ultimate test of emotional discipline. This is where Stoicism's most practical tool comes in, the pause. Not the dramatic count to 10 cliché, but a deliberate space between trigger and action where you reclaim your power. Ancient Stoics called it prosoch, attention to your inner state before it hijacks your behavior. In modern dating, it's the difference between sending a passive-aggressive essay at 2 a.m. and crafting a response that aligns with your self-respect. Picture this scenario: you're mid-conversation with a friend when your phone buzzes. It's them, the person who's been intermittently sprinkling crumbs of attention for weeks. Your stomach drops as you read their latest vague message, "Miss our talks." The old you might fire back immediately, maybe with sarcasm, "Who is this?" Desperation, "I've missed you too." Or worse, a novel about how their mixed signals hurt you. But the Stoic pause disrupts that cycle. You set the phone face down. You take 3 breaths. You ask yourself 2 questions. What do I actually want here? And will this reply serve that? This isn't about playing hard to get. It's about refusing to let someone else's whims dictate your emotional weather. Breadcrumbing works because it exploits our dopamine-driven craving for resolution. That pause, whether it's 30 seconds or 30 hours, breaks the spell. It gives you time to notice the physical reactions: racing heart, clenched jaw without being owned by them. Seneca wrote letters and burned them instead of sending them in anger. Today, that might look like drafting your raw response in notes, then revisiting it after a workout or a night's sleep. Here's the Stoic reframe: every message is a chance to practice integrity, not just get a reaction. When you finally reply, it might be as simple as, "Hope you're well." Neutral, unbothered, or "I've noticed your messages come in waves, what's that about?" Curious, direct. Either way, the power isn't in the words, it's in the space you took to choose them. That pause trains your brain to associate discomfort with clarity, not chaos. Over time, you'll start to crave that moment of stillness more than the temporary relief of a reactive reply. Try this exercise next time you're triggered. Physically change your environment before responding. Stand up, splash water on your face, walk around the block. The goal isn't to suppress emotion, it's to create enough distance to hear your wisdom over your wiring. Because the truth is, most dating frustrations aren't about the other person's behavior, they're about our own unmet expectations. The pause is where you decide whether to feed those expectations or free yourself from them. And in that space, you'll find something rare these days: the quiet confidence of someone who responds from choice, not compulsion. The beauty of this practice, it ripples beyond texting. Soon, you'll pause before swiping when lonely, before oversharing on a first date, before interpreting silence as rejection. Each pause becomes a brick in the foundation of emotional sovereignty, one that no ghost, breadcrumber, or slow fader can shake. And that's the real reward, not just better dating outcomes, but a steadier, more intentional you. Some of our most painful dating moments come from believing the current pain, the heartache, the loneliness, the frustration, is permanent. We whisper to ourselves in the dark, what if no one ever loves me? What if I'm always alone? But Stoicism offers a counterintuitive lifeline. Impermanence is the only guarantee. The ancient practice of memento mori, remembering death, wasn't about morbidity, it was about liberation. Seneca wrote letters to his grieving friend Lucilius not with platitudes but with a stark truth. This too shall pass. Apply this to modern dating and suddenly, rejection morphs from a life sentence to a temporary season. Think back to your last breakup or dating slump. The first sleepless night felt endless, the ache in your chest unbearable. But fast forward weeks or months later, didn't the edges soften? Didn't laughter return when you least expected it? This is the power of perspective. When you're drowning in the immediacy of a dating disappointment, memento mori becomes your anchor. It's not about dismissing your pain, it's about contextualizing it. The person who ghosted you will fade into a story you tell friends over wine. The missed connection that stung will become a footnote in your romantic history. Even the most profound heartbreaks, the ones that rewrite you, are by nature temporary. Here's how to practice this in real time. When you catch yourself catastrophizing, I'll never find someone, pause and physically shift your gaze. Look at a clock and note the time. Remind yourself, right now this hurts, but 5 hours from now, 5 days, the emotion will have evolved even slightly. This simple act disrupts the illusion that pain is static. There's a reason Stoics visualize their own deaths. It shrinks trivial worries to their true size. Try applying this to dating anxiety. Imagine yourself years from now looking back on this moment. What advice would future you offer? Would they still agonize over that unanswered text, or would they chuckle at how small it seems in the arc of your life? The real magic happens when you stop fighting impermanence and start collaborating with it. That first date nerves, temporary, the awkward silence after a risky joke. Fleeting, even the euphoria of new love, as beautiful as it is, isn't meant to last in its initial intensity. Everything transforms, and that's not tragic, it's what makes dating dynamic. When you internalize that no emotion, good or bad, gets to stay forever, you stop clinging so desperately to highs and fearing lows. You start riding the waves instead of drowning beneath them. So next time dating feels like an endless tunnel, whisper Seneca's words like a mantra. This too shall pass, not as a dismissal of your feelings, but as a reminder of your resilience. Because just as winter doesn't debate whether spring will come, your heart won't debate whether it will heal. It simply will in its own time, in its own way. And that's the quiet promise of impermanence. Nothing lasts, not even the pain, especially not the pain. Most dating profiles read like shopping lists, height preferences, hobbies, maybe a witty quip about loving tacos. But what if, instead of swiping based on shared Spotify playlists or well-lit selfies, you filtered potential partners through the lens of Stoic virtues? This is the radical shift that changes everything, moving from superficial checkboxes to soul-deep criteria that actually predict relationship resilience. Imagine judging compatibility not by how many interests overlap, but by how someone handles adversity, practices integrity, or cultivates wisdom. Start by defining your Stoic non-negotiables. The ancients prized 4 cardinal virtues: wisdom, practical judgment, courage, emotional fortitude, justice, fairness in action, and temperance, self-regulation. Translate these to modern dating. Wisdom might look like someone who pauses before reacting in anger. Courage could mean vulnerability in sharing hard truths. Justice appears in small acts, splitting the check without making it awkward, remembering your allergy without being reminded. Temperance shows up in how they manage impulses, whether that's drinking too much on a date or respecting boundaries without pushback. Here's the game changer. You don't just seek these virtues, you embody them first. It's easy to draft an ideal partner checklist, but Stoicism demands introspection. Ask yourself, am I the kind of person who meets my own standards? If you value emotional courage, do you communicate needs clearly or ghost when things get real? If wisdom matters, do you reflect on dating patterns or repeat the same mistakes while hoping for different results? This mirror exercise exposes a truth: we attract what we demonstrate. Contrast this with conventional swiping mentality. Most judge chemistry by banter or physical attraction, fleeting qualities that tell little about long-term compatibility. A Stoic approach digs deeper. That match who messages thoughtfully after a slow start, that's patience in action. The date who admits they're nervous instead of pretending to be cool. Authentic courage, even rejection can reveal virtue. Someone ending things cleanly rather than stringing you along shows respect, justice, and self-awareness. Temperance. Try this experiment. Next time you review a profile or leave a date, jot down one virtue you observed or felt was missing. Not, "we both love hiking," but "they listened without interrupting." That's wisdom. Or "they spoke bitterly about an ex." Lacked temperance. Over time, you'll train yourself to spot what truly sustains connection. The bonus, you'll waste less time on spark without substance and recognize quiet compatibility that outlasts initial fireworks. Because here's the secret no dating app will tell you: virtues compound, attraction fades, shared hobbies are nice but not foundational. What remains, what builds trust over years, is character. And that's something no filter can enhance or algorithm can fake. So before you swipe right again, ask not just, "Is this person interesting?" but "Would I admire how they handle life's storms?" The answer might just redefine your entire search. Scrolling through dating apps can feel like wandering through a gallery of impossible standards. Everyone's smiling on a yacht, holding an artisanal cocktail, or hiking Machu Picchu with flawless hair. Meanwhile, you're comparing your Tuesday night sweatpants leftovers, half watching a rerun, to someone else's highlight reel. This is where Stoicism delivers a wake-up call. Those curated snapshots aren't just unrealistic, they're externals, and fixating on them is like judging a book by its cover while ignoring the torn pages inside. The Stoics divided life into two categories: what's up to us, our judgments, actions, values, and what's not, other people's perceptions, social media illusions, arbitrary swipe decisions. Dating apps weaponize externals by design. They turn attraction into a game of surface-level impressions, where you're competing with thousands of filtered versions of reality. That profile with the sunset kiss in Santorini, you're seeing the one magical moment, not the 3-hour argument over directions that preceded it, the gym selfie with perfect lighting. Cropped out, the laundry pile swallowing their bedroom. Here's the mental shift: treat dating profiles like museum exhibits, interesting to observe, but not a benchmark for your life. When you catch yourself thinking, "Why don't I look that happy/traveled/fun?" pause and dissect the illusion. Ask, what's the full story here? What's left out of the frame? This isn't cynicism, it's clarity. The person posting gourmet meals might burn toast daily. The always adventuring bio could hide crippling debt from chasing Instagram aesthetics. Comparison distorts reality twice. It exaggerates others' lives and minimizes your own. Now try this experiment: a 7-day comparison detox. For 1 week, avoid scrolling dating apps aimlessly. When you do log on, notice the physical reactions: tightened chest, shallow breath that signal comparison kicking in. Then mentally edit the profiles like a director's cut. Add the bloopers, the sunburn from that beach photo, the jet lag behind the Paris selfie. Better yet, curate your own feed to reflect balance. Post a silly, unedited pic next to the polished one. Caption it, "90% of my life looks like this." You'll train your brain to see through the facade, not covet it. The deeper win. When you stop measuring yourself against manufactured perfection, you start showing up as you are, and that's where real connection begins. No one falls in love with a highlight reel. They fall for the unscripted moments in between, the laughter when the wine spills, the vulnerability of admitting you're nervous. The silence that doesn't need filling. These are the things no filter can enhance, and the very things Stoicism teaches us to prize. So put down the phone, step off the treadmill of comparison, and reclaim the messy, authentic, perfectly imperfect reality that's always been enough. Here's a radical dating experiment. For 1 week, commit to doing the thing that makes your palms sweat the most, asking someone out in person. Not through a screen, not with the safety net of pre-written banter, but face to face, where rejection stings sharper but connection feels more real. This is Stoicism's voluntary discomfort in action, a practice Musonius Rufus called hardiness training. Just as athletes condition their bodies through resistance, we strengthen emotional resilience by leaning into social friction. Think of it like exercising in the cold. At first, every muscle protests. It's unnatural, uncomfortable, even painful, but over time something shifts. Your tolerance builds. The same chill that once made you shudder now feels invigorating. Social courage works the same way. That coffee shop regular you've exchanged glances with. The colleague whose laugh lights up meetings. These are your training grounds. The goal isn't to succeed by getting a yes, it's to rewire your relationship with awkwardness itself. Here's why this works. Dating apps have outsourced bravery to algorithms. Swiping requires zero risk. You reject and get rejected with the emotional investment of choosing a takeout dish. But real connection demands vulnerability, and vulnerability thrives in discomfort. When Musonius lectured on enduring hardship, he wasn't preaching masochism, he was teaching empowerment through exposure. Every time you choose to approach someone despite the fear, you prove to yourself discomfort won't kill you. In fact, it makes you more alive. Try this 3-step challenge. First, identify your discomfort zone. Maybe it's complimenting a stranger's style, suggesting a real-life meet after 2 messages, or simply holding eye contact a second longer than feels safe. Next, track your predictions. My voice will crack. They'll think I'm creepy. Then test them. 9 times out of 10, you'll discover the imagined catastrophe was just background noise. That 10th time, still a win, because resilience isn't built in comfort. The magic happens in the aftermath. Win or lose, you'll notice a quiet shift, the text you stop overanalyzing, the dates where you speak up instead of people-pleasing, the sudden indifference to ghosting. Why? Because voluntary discomfort recalibrates your fear thermostat. What once terrified you becomes familiar territory, and in that space between risk and reward, you'll find something rare. The unshakable confidence of someone who knows they can handle whatever comes. So start small. Ask the barista how their day's going, not as flirtation but as practice in human connection. Strike up conversation in a bookstore aisle. The more you normalize these micro moments of bravery, the more natural bigger asks will feel. Because at its core, Stoic dating isn't about avoiding rejection, it's about becoming the kind of person who doesn't need to. There's a raw honesty that only paper demands. No performative captions, no curated stories, just the messy truth of how you feel when the screen goes dark. This is where Stoic journaling becomes your secret weapon in modern dating, not to vent but to investigate. Imagine treating every date like a lab experiment, where emotions are data points waiting to be decoded. Instead of replaying conversations in your head, you dissect them with the precision of a philosopher asking, what's really under this reaction? Take disappointment, for example. You might journal after a date, felt gutted when they didn't text back. Why? The surface answer is obvious. You wanted connection, it didn't happen. But Stoic journaling digs deeper. You'd probe, was my sadness about their silence or the story I attached to it? Did I interpret no reply as proof I'm unlovable? This distinction is everything. The event no text is neutral. The suffering comes from your judgment about it. Epictetus wrote, men are disturbed not by things but by the views they take of them. Journaling exposes those hidden views. Here's how to transform your notes into growth. After each date, grab a notebook and divide a page into 2 columns. On the left, list what happened objectively. Sent follow-up message at 7 p.m. No response by midnight. On the right, unpack your interpretations. I assumed they lost interest. Felt embarrassed for being too eager. Then apply the Stoic fork. Circle what was truly within your control, sending a genuine message, and cross out what wasn't their response, societal myths about texting, rules. This simple act trains your brain to separate action from attachment, but the real gold lies in tracking patterns over time. Maybe you'll notice your anxiety spikes with people who mirror your humor but dodge deep questions, revealing a craving for validation over substance. Or perhaps you'll spot that post-ghosting sadness lasts half as long now that you journal, because you've stopped fueling the narrative that rejection defines you. Try this tonight. Write about a recent dating interaction without using the words they, them, or their. Force all focus onto your own judgments and actions. You'll quickly see how much mental energy gets hijacked by trying to mind-read others instead of understanding yourself. That's the power of Stoic journaling. It turns every date, match, or misstep into a mirror, reflecting back not who liked you, but who you're becoming in the pursuit of love. And that's the only review that really matters. There's a particular kind of heartbreak that strikes long before any actual relationship begins. The pain of watching a promising connection that could have been something slowly fade into nothing. You know the feeling, those early messages that felt electric, the first date where time seemed to vanish, the way your brain started sketching out future scenarios after just one good conversation. Stoics call this future tripping, and it's the emotional equivalent of building a mansion on rented land. You pour your hope into plans that don't exist yet, borrowing happiness from a tomorrow that isn't promised. Epictetus put it beautifully when he said, "Remember that what you love isn't the vine but the grapes. Enjoy what's offered now without clutching at what might never come." Consider how differently you'd experience dating if you treated every spark like a firefly, something to appreciate in the moment, not capture in a jar. That match who sends thoughtful voice notes, enjoy them like a favorite song, not a contract for future duets. The date who makes you laugh so hard your stomach hurts. Let it be enough without tacking on silent expectations for 20 more just like it. This isn't pessimism, it's presence. The Stoic doesn't refuse joy, they simply refuse to mortgage it against hypothetical futures. Here's the litmus test. When you catch yourself daydreaming about someone, pause and ask, am I savoring this person or the character I've written for them? Future tripping turns real humans into stand-ins for our fantasies. You're not crushing on them, you're infatuated with the version who'd meet your parents flawlessly. Remember your coffee order years from now, fit seamlessly into your life like the missing puzzle piece you've imagined. That's not connection, it's projection. And when reality inevitably diverges from the script, the disappointment cuts deeper because you weren't just losing them. You were losing the entire alternate universe you'd built around them. Try this exercise next time potential starts spinning into fantasy. Bring it back to the facts. Write down 3 things you actually know about the person based on evidence, not hopes. They texted back within an hour twice is real. They'd be an amazing partner is fiction. The gap between those 2 sentences is where suffering breeds. The paradox, letting go of attachment to outcomes often leads to better ones. When you stop treating every good date as the first chapter of a novel, you show up more authentically, less performative, less anxious, more open to what is instead of fixated on what could be. And that's when connections flourish, not under the weight of expectation, but in the lightness of genuine discovery. So pluck the grapes, taste their sweetness, and leave the vine where it grows. Some fruits are meant to be enjoyed in season, not stored for winters that may never come. Imagine this, you've just unmatched someone after realizing they casually mentioned values that clash with yours. Maybe they laughed off honesty or dismissed a cause you hold dear. For a split second, your finger hovers over the screen. A whisper creeps in, was that too harsh? What if I'm being too picky? That right there, that hesitation, is the approval addiction talking. Stoicism calls it the tyranny of external validation, where we outsource our self-worth to strangers' opinions. But here's the truth no dating app will tell you. your peace isn't negotiable, and your values aren't up for a popularity contest. Let's break down how this plays out in practice. You match with someone charismatic, great banter, magnetic confidence. Then, mid-conversation, they drop a remark that lands wrong. Maybe it's a gendered stereotype they frame as just joking, or a flippant comment about boundaries. The old you might brush it aside, rationalizing, maybe I'm overreacting. Chemistry's hard to find, but the Stoic doesn't negotiate with their own discomfort. They ask, does this align with who I am and what I deserve? If the answer's no, unmatching isn't rejection, it's reverence. Reverence for your time, your energy, your non-negotiables. Here's the mental shift. Reframe unmatching as curating your emotional ecosystem. You wouldn't keep a rotten apple in your fruit bowl just to avoid wasting it. Why tolerate misalignment for fear of seeming difficult? Role-play this scenario beforehand. Next time you're swiping, pause at each profile and ask, if this person said X, would I walk away? Preemptively deciding your boundaries trains you to act from integrity, not insecurity. The real test comes after the unmatch. Notice the physical sensations, the tightness in your chest, the urge to explain yourself. That's the approval withdrawal talking. Sit with it. Write down the story you're telling yourself. If I unmatch, they'll think I'm. Now challenge it. So what if they do? Their opinion holds no weight in your life's direction. Epictetus, born a slave, famously said, if someone speaks badly of you, that's their problem. Your problem is how you react. Apply that here. The right person won't make you question your worth for having standards. Try this experiment for 1 week. Unmatch or decline dates without justification. Not rudely, but unapologetically. No, sorry, I'm just really busy. Just a quiet exit. Each time, note how it feels to prioritize your peace over politeness. At first, it might ache like a muscle unused to exercise, but soon you'll discover something liberating. The less you seek approval, the less you need it. And that's when dating transforms from a performance into a partnership, where you're not auditioning but choosing. Playing hard to get is one of dating's oldest myths, the idea that withholding attention, delaying replies, or feigning indifference somehow makes you more desirable. But Stoicism cuts through this nonsense like a blade through fog. If you have to manipulate someone's interest, you've already lost. Dating with integrity isn't about tactics. It's about showing up as someone who respects others too much to play with their emotions, and yourself too much to pretend you're something you're not. Think about the absurdity of the rules, waiting exactly 3 days to text back, pretending you're busy when you're scrolling through their photos. Strategically liking their friend's post to spark jealousy. These aren't tools for connection, they're theater. And worse, they train you to see people as opponents to outsmart rather than humans to know. Epictetus warned against this centuries ago. If you wish to improve, be content to appear clueless or stupid. Translation: authenticity trumps artifice every time. Here's the irony no one talks about. Playing cool often backfires. That person who matches your energy when you take hours to reply, they're not falling for you, they're reacting to a game neither of you invented. When you finally drop the act, who are they really drawn to? The curated version or the real you? Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Waste no more time arguing what a good person should be." Be one, apply that to dating. If you're interested, say so. If you're not, don't string them along. Simple doesn't mean easy, but it does mean honorable. Take the story of Lee, who spent months adhering to dating rules with a rotating cast of partners. She'd carefully time her messages, always let the other person initiate plans, and never admit she cared. Then she tried the Stoic approach, radical honesty. On her next date, when she felt a genuine click, she said, "I really enjoy talking to you, no games, no pretending otherwise." The result, not just a second date, but a refreshingly real conversation about how exhausting performative dating had been for both of them. This doesn't mean oversharing or ignoring social cues. Integrity isn't confessing your childhood trauma over appetizers. It's aligning your actions with your values. If you value respect, don't ghost. If you value clarity, communicate your intentions. If you value time, yours and theirs, don't waste it on mind games. The real reward of dating this way, you filter for compatibility, not just chemistry. The people who appreciate your honesty are the ones worth keeping. The ones who only chase the thrill of the chase, they'll fade out naturally, and that's the point. Stoicism teaches that the only love worth having is the kind that doesn't require you to wear a mask. So put down the rulebook, text back when you want to. Say yes when you mean it, walk away when you don't. The right person won't just recognize your authenticity, they'll mirror it back to you. Ghosting doesn't have to leave you staring at your phone, dissecting every prior message for clues. What if, instead of taking silence personally, you saw it as the universe doing you a favor? Stoicism teaches us that rejection isn't just inevitable, it's instructive. When someone disappears without explanation, they're not robbing you of closure, they're handing you a shortcut. Think about it. Every ghosting incident is essentially a fast-forward button, sparing you months of half-hearted replies, lukewarm interest, or the slow erosion of your self-respect. Consider the alternative: someone who sticks around out of obligation rather than genuine desire. They replied just enough to keep you hooked, stringing you along with vague plans or hollow compliments. Compare that to the ghoster, who at least has the decency to remove themselves decisively, even if not gracefully. Silence speaks volumes. As Seneca wrote, sometimes even to live is an act of courage. In dating terms, sometimes the kindest exit is the one without fanfare. Here's a Stoic ritual to reframe ghosting as gratitude. When you notice someone's vanished, take 30 seconds to say aloud, "Thank you for showing me early what you couldn't give." Then physically delete the thread or unmatch. This isn't about forgiveness, it's about reclaiming agency. You're acknowledging their choice while refusing to let it define yours. The act of vocalizing gratitude might feel forced at first, but over time, it rewires your brain to associate rejection with redirection rather than inadequacy. There's a neurological benefit too. Studies show that rituals, even simple ones, reduce emotional distress by creating a sense of control. By turning ghosting into a ceremonial release, you're not just moving on, you're reprogramming your response to abandonment. The real test comes when you bump into them months later, thriving without you. That's when the Stoic mindset shines. No bitterness, no performative indifference, just quiet acknowledgement that their exit made space for something better. Because that's the hidden gift of ghosting. It doesn't just reveal their character, it reveals yours. Do you crumble or recalibrate, cling or cultivate? The choice is yours, and that's the most empowering part. Silence isn't rejection, it's an invitation to grow. Right now, this unanswered text or cancelled date might feel like the center of your universe. But picture this: you're floating in space, looking down at Earth, a pale blue dot swirling in an infinite cosmos. That person who left you on read, the one who bailed last minute. From this vantage point, they're barely a speck on a speck. This is Stoicism's view from above, a mental exercise that shrinks dating drama down to its true size by zooming out, way out. Try this tonight. Close your eyes and fast forward 1 year. Not to some idealized future where you're happily partnered, but to an ordinary Tuesday 12 months from now. You wake up, make coffee, scroll through your phone. Do you even remember this specific match that's consuming your thoughts today? Odds are their name will barely register. The anxiety you're feeling now faded like last season's trending topic. This isn't about minimizing your feelings, it's about contextualizing them. The sting of rejection is real, but so is its temporariness. Marcus Aurelius practiced this daily. He'd visualize the bustling Roman Forum not as the center of power, but as one tiny square in the vast tapestry of human history. Apply that to your dating life. That awkward first date, in the grand scheme, it's less significant than a single frame in a movie. the ghosting episode that stung last week. A drop in the ocean of your lived experience. Here's the twist: the view from above isn't just for pain, it works for pleasure too. That electrifying kiss after dinner. The rush of a new match's flirty banter. These moments are beautiful precisely because they're fleeting. By zooming out, you savor them without clinging. You appreciate the spark without demanding it become a wildfire. Practical exercise: keep a cosmic perspective note in your phone. When dating stress hits, jot down the event, then project forward. July 4th, matched with Alex, great convo, then ghosted. Revisit these notes months later. You'll smile at how little power those events retained. The view from above doesn't erase emotions. It puts them in orbit around your bigger life where they belong. Because in the end, dating isn't your universe. It's just one constellation in the galaxy of who you are. Gratitude might seem like an unlikely response to rejection, especially when your stomach drops at yet another read at 2 p.m. with no reply. But what if every unanswered text or dead-end date carried a hidden thank you note? This is Stoicism's counterintuitive twist, treating rejection not as a loss but as a time-saving gift. Seneca, the philosopher who turned exile into a creative rebirth, kept a gratitude journal with a daily ritual thanking even his adversaries for the lessons they forced him to learn. Apply that to dating and suddenly, thanks for ghosting isn't sarcasm, it's strategy. Think about the math of wasted time. That person who strung you along for 3 weeks of lukewarm texts before vanishing. They could have stolen months. The one who bailed last minute on what would have been an awkward mismatch. They gifted you an evening back. Rejection's greatest lie is that it's about you, when so often it's just cosmic efficiency at work. Like a librarian pulling the wrong book from the shelf before you've wasted hours reading it. The Stoic doesn't begrudge the return, they appreciate the redirect. Here's how to practice this after any rejection, ghosting, a polite no spark, even an abrupt block. Open your Notes app and draft a Seneca-style thank you. Not passive-aggressive, thanks for showing your true colors, but specific. Thank you for ending this before I invested more emotion in someone who wasn't sure. The key is identifying the precise time or energy saved. Maybe it's avoiding a 5th date with someone who'd never introduce you to friends, or dodging a situationship with an emotionally unavailable partner. By naming the bullet you dodged, rejection transforms from personal slight to practical favor. There's neuroscience behind this. Gratitude journaling reduces activity in the amygdala, the brain's panic button. When you reframe rejection as a protective no thank you from the universe, you short-circuit the spiral of self-doubt. Try linking it to a physical ritual, deleting their contact while mentally whispering thanks, or burning a slip of paper with their name safely, obviously. The act of release cements the lesson. Their exit wasn't blocking your happiness, it was clearing the path for it. The real test comes when gratitude feels impossible. That soul-crushing rejection where you're sure they were the one. Write the thank you anyway. Thank you for revealing that my heart still works. Thank you for teaching me what I won't tolerate next time. Even thank you for showing me I can survive this. Because here's the secret Seneca knew. Gratitude isn't about the giver, it's about the receiver. Every rejection you thank is a reminder that you're the steward of your own worth, and no one's silence can repossess it. So next time your chest tightens at an unreturned call, switch the script. Don't ask why they didn't choose you, ask what their absence chose for you. More self-respect, fewer compromises, maybe just a free Saturday for something that actually fills your cup. The Stoics didn't wait for life to be fair, they forged fairness from whatever life handed them. Your dating life works the same way. Every no is shelf space cleared for a hell yes. Every ghost is a whisper, better's coming, and the gratitude. That's just you agreeing with the universe's editing. That moment when you meet someone new and your brain whispers, this could be the one. It's like stepping into a fairy tale where the first chapter already promises a happy ending. But here's the Stoic reality check. The one is a narrative, not a fact. The ancient Stoics didn't believe in cosmic soulmates, they believed in alignment, in choosing partners who shared their values and virtues, not some predetermined destiny. This isn't cynical, it's liberating, because when you release the idea that love is a scavenger hunt for a single missing piece, you open yourself to something far more powerful. The recognition that compatibility isn't rare magic but conscious creation. Take the story of Marcus Aurelius himself. History remembers him as one of Rome's greatest emperors, but few know his love story with Faustina. Their marriage wasn't written in the stars, it was a partnership forged through shared purpose, mutual respect, and daily choice. Faustina wasn't the one because fate decreed it. She became his anchor because they cultivated something real day by day. That's the Stoic alternative to soulmate mythology, love as verb, not lottery. Modern dating thrives on the opposite illusion. Rom-coms, pop songs, even dating app algorithms sell the fantasy of an instant, effortless click, as if stumbling upon the right person should feel like solving a puzzle with the first piece you pick up. But real connection, that's more like building a mosaic. You gather fragments, shared laughter, overlapping values, quiet understanding, and assemble them into something beautiful over time. The difference is subtle but seismic. Instead of searching for someone who fits a pre-written script, you're composing the story together. Here's how to practice this shift. Next time you feel that dizzying spark with someone, pause and ask, am I drawn to who they are or who I imagine they could be? Soulmate thinking thrives on projection, the belief that this person will complete you, heal old wounds, or finally make life make sense. Stoic love asks something gentler and more sustainable. Do we align in ways that help us both grow? Try this exercise. Make 2 lists, one labeled needs, non-negotiables like honesty, kindness, emotional availability, and another labeled wants, preferences like shared hobbies or physical traits. Now imagine 10 potential partners who could fulfill the needs column, not clones of each other, but distinct humans with different strengths. Suddenly, the one morphs into the many. This isn't lowering standards, it's widening perspective. The real magic happens when you realize that love isn't about finding someone perfect, but building something resilient. The couple that lasts isn't the one blessed by fate, it's the one that chooses each other daily, even when the initial glitter fades. Because here's the secret the Stoics knew: the deepest connections aren't found, they're forged. And that's not a consolation prize, it's the real fairy tale. There's a delicate alchemy to early dating, that precarious phase where every text carries the weight of possibility, yet one misstep could evaporate the connection entirely. This is where Seneca's wisdom shines brightest. Hope for the best, but prepare for the worst. It's not about pessimism or rose-colored glasses. It's about holding both at once, like a tightrope walker balancing a lantern in one hand and a safety net in the other. Consider how this plays out in those first flirtatious exchanges. You match with someone who references your favorite book in their profile, a tiny spark of potential. The old you might have plunged headfirst into fantasy, drafting paragraphs about future bookstore dates and shared reading lists. Or at the other extreme, you'd armor up, assuming they're just another vapid conversationalist. But the Stoic approach a middle path. You send a playful message about the book, maybe a witty line or a thoughtful question, while mentally acknowledging this could go somewhere or it could fizzle by tomorrow. That dual awareness keeps you engaged but unshackled. Here's the key distinction: cautious optimism isn't half-heartedness, it's full presence without full investment. Think of it like planting a seed. You water it, send the thoughtful follow-up, ensure it gets sunlight, keep the energy light and reciprocal, but you don't camp out beside the soil demanding it sprout overnight. Seneca wrote, "The wise man neither hopes nor fears, but makes use of both." Apply that here. Hope fuels the courage to initiate. Realism tempers the expectation that every initiation must succeed. Take the example of early texting rhythms. Say they take hours to reply. The hopeful interpretation, they're busy but interested. The realistic one, they might be lukewarm. The Stoic blends both. They could be either. I'll match their effort without over-rotating. This mindset prevents the all-too-common spiral from "why aren't they responding?" to "what's wrong with me?" Practical exercise. For the next week, tag every dating interaction with 2 mental labels. One, hope. Their profile mentions volunteering. Maybe they're compassionate. One, reality. Or maybe they just listed it to seem noble. Over time, you'll notice something liberating. The less you need hope to be right, the more you can appreciate it as just one possible outcome among many. Because here's the paradox: when you stop clinging to hope as a lifeline, it becomes a lighter, brighter thing, a flicker of curiosity rather than a demand. And that's when dating transforms from a high-stakes audition into an open-ended exploration. You're not waiting for someone to validate your worth. You're discovering whether your paths align, with the quiet confidence that if they don't, you've lost nothing but a possibility, and possibilities are infinite. There's a tiny but mighty phrase the ancient Stoics used to inoculate themselves against disappointment: reserve clause, or as they called it in Latin, acceptio. It's the simple act of adding, if nothing interferes or fate permitting, to every plan or expectation. In modern dating terms, instead of thinking, "we're definitely seeing each other Friday," you train yourself to think, "we'll meet up Friday if nothing comes up." At first glance, this might sound like hedging your bets or expecting the worst, but dig deeper and you'll find it's the opposite. It's a way to stay engaged with life while releasing the death grip on how things should unfold. Picture this: you've been texting someone new for days and the conversation flows effortlessly. They suggest meeting for coffee on Sunday, and your brain does what brains do: it skips ahead, imagining the whole scene. The way they'll laugh at your jokes, the potential spark, maybe even mentally drafting the Instagram caption. Then Sunday arrives and they cancel. The old you would spiral. Why does this always happen? Did they change their mind? But with the reserve clause, you'd have held that initial excitement more lightly. Coffee on Sunday if nothing comes up. When plans shift, it's not a personal affront, it's just life unfolding as life does. The disappointment might still land, but it won't knock you flat. This isn't about pessimism, it's about precision. The reserve clause acknowledges a truth we often ignore: every plan is a collaboration with the universe. Traffic happens, work emergencies pop up, people get sick or overwhelmed or just wake up in a different headspace. By building that reality into your expectations, you're not lowering your standards, you're aligning them with how the world actually works. Marcus Aurelius captured this perfectly in his Meditations. When you wake up in the morning, tell yourself, "The people I deal with today will be meddling, ungrateful, arrogant, dishonest, jealous, and surly." Not because he assumed the worst of everyone, but because he knew human nature is unpredictable. Dating is no different. Here's how to practice it. Next time you make plans, whether it's a first date or a fifth, add a silent mental asterisk. "We'll have dinner Thursday if nothing interferes." When you catch yourself daydreaming about how it'll go, gently reroute, "I'm excited to see where this leads if we both still feel the connection." The magic isn't in the words, it's in the shift they create. You'll start noticing how much mental energy you used to waste agonizing over hypotheticals, and how much lighter it feels to stay open without being attached. The real test comes when plans do fall through. Instead of rage texting, "I knew you'd flake," or internalizing it as rejection, you'll respond with something far more powerful: neutrality. Maybe you'll pivot to a solo movie night, or finally try that recipe you've been saving. The reserve clause doesn't just soften disappointment, it reveals the hidden flexibility you always had. Because here's the secret the Stoics knew: when you stop conflating "this didn't happen" with "this shouldn't have happened," you free yourself to enjoy what does unfold. And in the messy, unpredictable world of modern dating, that's not just resilience, it's liberation. Rejection hits like a delayed train, first the shock, then the creeping sting, then hours or days of replaying every word, every glance, searching for where it went wrong. But what if you could compress that emotional aftermath from weeks to minutes? This is Stoicism's secret weapon for modern dating, shortening the feedback loop between pain and progress. Marcus Aurelius had a daily ritual he'd greet each dawn by saying, "Today I shall meet with interference, ingratitude, insolence, disloyalty, ill will, and selfishness." Not to dwell on negativity, but to preemptively shrink disappointment's lifespan. Apply that to dating, and suddenly rejection isn't a crisis, it's a cue to ask two questions. What's the lesson? And what's next? Here's how it works in practice. You get the polite but firm, no spark text after a date you thought went well. The old script might involve dissecting their tone, scrutinizing your outfit choices, or drafting hypothetical rebuttals. The shortened feedback loop bypasses all that. You acknowledge the sting, ouch, that smarts, then immediately pivot. Did this reveal a pattern? Maybe I've been prioritizing humor over depth. Onward. The key isn't suppressing emotion. It's refusing to let emotion set up camp in your mind. Think of it like a mental sprint. You feel the burn, but you keep moving before lactic acid paralyzes you. Consider the difference between two reactions. Person A spends days analyzing a ghosting incident. Was it their last message, their outfit, their job? Person B feels the same initial hurt, but within an hour they've journaled 3 takeaways. Less small talk next time. Noticed I overlook shy types. Realized I need clearer deal breakers, and messaged a friend to hike Saturday. Both experienced the same event, but person B's recovery time is a fraction of person A's. That's the power of a disciplined feedback loop. It treats emotional pain like a physical wound. You clean it, stitch it, and focus on rehabilitation, not just the injury. Marcus' morning mantra primes this mindset. By expecting friction, bad dates, flakiness, mismatched energy, you're never caught off guard. It's the difference between being surprised by rain and carrying an umbrella. Try adapting his ritual for dating. Today I might face disinterest, mixed signals, or rejection. None of this defines me. Say it aloud while brewing coffee or lacing up your shoes. You'll notice something peculiar. When rejection does come, it feels almost expected. Not pleasant, but familiar, like a weather shift you've already dressed for. The real test comes when you're tempted to dwell. That's when you deploy Stoic speed drills. Set a timer for 5 minutes post-rejection. Vent, cry, journal, then when the buzzer sounds, shift gears. Text a friend a silly meme. Put on a song that makes you strut. Open your calendar and block time for something that excites you. The goal isn't to pretend it doesn't hurt. It's to prove to yourself that the hurt doesn't get to dictate your day. This isn't about numbing sensitivity, it's about honoring your resilience. Just as athletes don't get over a loss but learn and refocus, you're training to metabolize dating's inevitable setbacks faster. Over time, you'll notice the loop tightening naturally. What once took weeks to process now takes hours. What required a pint of ice cream now just needs a deep breath and a redirection of attention. And that's the ultimate freedom, knowing no rejection, no silence, no mismatch gets to rent space in your mind for longer than you allow. The Stoics didn't avoid pain, they mastered its rhythm. And in modern dating, that rhythm makes all the difference between being derailed and staying delightfully, unshakably on track. Most dating apps are designed like slot machines, endless swiping, flashing notifications, the constant promise that someone better might appear with the next flick of your thumb. But here's the Stoic paradox. True connection thrives in scarcity, not abundance. When you're drowning in matches, every conversation stays shallow, like skimming pages of 100 books, but never sinking into a single story. Depth demands discipline. It's the courage to say, this handful of meaningful exchanges matters more than 50 lukewarm haze. Think of your attention as currency. Every time you engage with a low-effort match, someone who responds with one-word answers, takes days to reply, or never asks you a question, you're investing in distraction, not connection. The Stoics called this misplaced assent, giving mental energy to things that don't deserve it. Epictetus warned, "If you wish to improve, be content to appear clueless or stupid in extraneous matters." Translation: stop worrying about seeming picky when you unmatch someone who can't string together 3 thoughtful sentences. Here's the experiment that changes everything. For 1 week, impose a 3-message rule. If by the 3rd exchange the conversation hasn't moved beyond small talk, think, "How's your week?" Traded 4 times, politely disengage. No guilt, no second chances, just a quiet exit. You'll quickly notice something liberating. The time you used to waste carrying dead-end chats now opens up for deeper connections. It's like decluttering your closet. When you remove what doesn't fit, you actually see what does. Consider the contrast between 2 types of matches. Person A sends a generic opener, "Hey, how's it going?" Person B references your hiking photo. "That summit view is stunning. Was that Mount Rainier? I did the Skyline Trail last fall and still dream about those wildflowers." One demands emotional labor from you to spark chemistry. The other offers a ready-made spark. Stoicism doesn't just teach discernment, it demands it. And in a world drowning in digital small talk, discernment becomes your lifeline to authenticity. This isn't about elitism, it's about energy economics. Every swipe right should be a conscious, "I'd give this person an hour of my undivided attention," not just "maybe they'll like me." Try this reframe before matching. Would I enjoy sitting across from this person if they never found me attractive? If the answer isn't yes, you're not selecting for connection, you're gambling for validation. The magic lies in what happens when you stop spreading crumbs of attention across dozens of mediocre interactions. Suddenly, the few remaining conversations deepen. You notice nuances, how they follow up on your mentioned love for jazz, how their humor lands when they're not performing for an audience of one. Depth becomes possible precisely because you stopped settling for dopamine hits. And that's when dating transforms from a numbers game into an exploration of human complexity, one thoughtful exchange at a time. Every disastrous date holds up a mirror if you're brave enough to look. That awkward silence when you realized you had nothing in common, the cringeworthy moment they made a tone-deaf joke and you forced a laugh, these aren't just misfires, they're neon signs pointing to your own blind spots. Epictetus put it bluntly, "If you wish to improve, be content to appear clueless or stupid in extraneous matters. Focus on seeing yourself clearly." In dating terms, the person across the table is never the full story. The real revelation is what your reaction to them exposes about you. Take the rush for instant chemistry, that intoxicating feeling when conversation flows effortlessly from the first message. We've all chased it, mistaking ease for compatibility. But here's the mirror moment, when you catch yourself dismissing someone interesting because the spark didn't ignite in 30 minutes. Ask yourself, why do I expect connection to be instantaneous? Is it impatience, a fear of slow-building intimacy, or worse, are you addicted to the high of newness at the expense of depth? The Stoics called this propathia, the raw, initial reactions that reveal our deeper inclinations before reason steps in. That frustration when a date doesn't wow you immediately, it's not about them. It's about your relationship with pace itself. Then there's the flip side, the dates where you feel inexplicably drawn to someone who's clearly wrong for you. Maybe they're emotionally unavailable, but their sarcasm hooks you. Maybe they're inconsistent, but their charm disarms you. These attractions are mirrors too, reflecting old wounds masquerading as preferences. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Look beneath the surface, never let the kernel of a thing escape you." Apply that here. That gravitational pull toward chaotic personalities might reveal a childhood spent equating love with unpredictability. The attraction to people who keep you guessing, perhaps it mirrors your own avoidance of true vulnerability. Practical exercise: after your next underwhelming date, skip the usual postmortem about their flaws. Instead, grab your journal and answer 3 questions. 1. What about this person triggered me, and why? 2. Did I show up as my fullest self, or a curated version I thought they'd like? 3. If this dynamic played out with 5 different people, what would that tell me? You'll start noticing patterns you never saw before, like how you laugh off red flags when attracted to someone, or how quickly you abandon your boundaries to keep the peace. These aren't failures, they're diagnostic tools, the most transformative mirror of all, the bad date you can't stop ranting about. That person who talked only about themselves, or showed up late without apology, or made passive-aggressive comments about your career. What if their worst behavior is highlighting something you tolerate in yourself? Maybe their selfishness mirrors where you've neglected your own needs. Their tardiness reflects your own lax boundaries. Even their criticism might echo your own unspoken doubts. This isn't about taking responsibility for others' poor behavior. It's about excavating the lessons beneath the frustration. The Stoics didn't believe in wasted experiences, only wasted reflections. So the next time a date makes you cringe, pause before blaming them. Look into the mirror they're holding up. What you see might just change how you date and who you become along the way. There's an unspoken assumption in modern dating that being single is just a waiting room, an inconvenient gap between relationships where you're supposed to scroll, swipe, and settle as quickly as possible. But what if these solo stretches aren't empty spaces to endure, but fertile ground for the most transformative kind of preparation? Stoicism flips the script on solitude, treating it not as lack but as laboratory. Seneca, who wrote some of his most profound letters while exiled to Corsica, called solitude the ultimate test of self-sufficiency. If you're ever alone, you're never lonely because you're in the company of someone you've taken time to know. That someone, you. Think of single periods like a pre-season training camp for athletes. The games haven't started yet, but every drill, every lap, every drop of sweat is building the stamina you'll need when the real competition begins. Only here, the training isn't physical, it's emotional, mental, spiritual. How you spend your solitude determines how you'll show up in partnership. Do you panic at quiet nights, filling them with half-hearted dates just to avoid being alone with your thoughts? That's endurance wasted. Or do you treat them like Seneca treated his exile, as an invitation to dig deeper into who you are when no one's watching? Here's the experiment that changes everything. For 1 month, intentionally abstain from dating apps. Not as punishment, but as excavation. Use the mental real estate you'd normally spend crafting bios or decoding texts to ask harder questions. What habits have you adopted just to seem more dateable? Which of your boundaries bend when loneliness knocks? How much of your identity is shaped by who you're seen with rather than who you are? This isn't navel-gazing, it's assembling the toolkit you'll need for healthy connection. Because the paradox is this: the more whole you are alone, the less you'll tolerate crumbs in relationship. Seneca's letters to Lucilius overflow with this wisdom. Far from Rome's chaos, he discovered that solitude wasn't deprivation but distillation. Stripped of society's noise, he could hear his own voice clearly, his true fears, his unvarnished values. Apply that to modern singlehood. Those Friday nights without plans, they're not empty. They're open studios where you get to sketch the blueprint of your next chapter. The weekends without romantic distractions, laboratories to test what actually fills your cup when no one's there to impress. The real test comes when attraction does spark again. Suddenly, you're not approaching dates from a place of hunger but curiosity. You're not auditioning, you're selecting. Because here's the secret Stoics uncovered centuries ago. Solitude isn't the opposite of connection, it's the foundation. Just as farmers let fields lie fallow to restore nutrients, your heart needs seasons where it isn't tilled by another's expectations. And when you finally do invite someone in, it won't be because you needed them to complete you, but because you chose them to complement the wholeness you've already built. So next time you catch yourself sighing at another solo dinner, remember, this isn't waiting. This is preparation of the highest order. The ancients didn't fear solitude. They revered it as sacred ground where character is forged. Your turn, set the table for one and feast on the most important relationship you'll ever have, the one with yourself, because the love that grows from that soil isn't desperate or fragile. It's rooted, resilient, and ready not for just anyone, but for the right one. Imagine standing in front of a toolbox, each wrench, hammer, and screwdriver designed for a specific job. Now picture those tools as the 25 Stoic strategies we've explored. Some for weathering rejection, others for cultivating presence, a few for dismantling unhealthy attachments. You wouldn't use every tool at once to fix a loose hinge, would you? The same applies here. This isn't about overhauling your entire dating life overnight. It's about selecting the right few tools for where you're at right now. Maybe today it's the pause before reacting to a breadcrumbers text. Tomorrow, it might be negative visualization to prep for a tough conversation. The power lies not in mastering everything at once, but in knowing the full arsenal is there when you need it. Think back to Epictetus's words. First say to yourself what you would be, then do what you have to do. That's the heart of this whole practice. Before you can navigate modern dating with resilience, you've got to define what resilient even looks like for you. Is it someone who doesn't crumble at ghosting, who approaches dates with curiosity instead of desperation, who sees rejection as redirection, name it? Then, and only then, reach for the specific Stoic tools that build that version of you. So here's your challenge. Pick 2 or 3 of these principles to test drive this week. Not 25, not even 10, just a handful that resonate most. Maybe it's keeping a Stoic journal after dates to separate facts from judgments, or practicing amor fati by finding one good thing in every mismatch. Perhaps it's as simple as adding the reserve clause, if nothing interferes, to your expectations. What matters is starting small, stacking wins, and letting the philosophy do its work gradually. Now over to you. Which Stoic tip are you taking for a spin first? Drop it in the comments, not just to share, but to solidify your commitment. There's magic in declaring intent out loud, even to strangers. And who knows, your choice might spark someone else's aha moment too. Because the beauty of Stoicism isn't just in applying it, it's in realizing you're not alone in the struggle, and the wisdom to rise above it has been waiting for you all along, 2,000 years deep. Your move.